Discussions at the committee level with regard to the safety was there was a feeling that putting in those security guards was a safety measure, a valid safety measure, and I think that even though you can really go beyond that with the cameras and access control and all those things, my understanding at least was there was a general consensus that you know, that was a good security measure. We've got people in the buildings, they're watching the front, and there was a level of satisfaction with that. Where do you stand on that issue?
I don't feel that it's satisfying at all, and not to knock the school district at all, but there's been many times recently that I haven't been asked for ID, maybe because they recognize me or whatnot, but it's not satisfying at all to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The office suites, which is that tight quarters with the nurses area where you cannot get a gurney into that nurse's office, the way it's constructed right now. So that's a reconfiguration of that area, plus the sally ports and a split air conditioning system in that area. That was, and do you have current numbers, or we're going to just work off of the existing ones?
Work off the numbers, the 2014 numbers. Right.
That currently is at 324,296. My question would be, and I'll let it be known up front where I stand, that security is a big piece in my mind. I feel that we as a board, we've listened to the community. They were here January 3rd, 2013. They spoke about the security in our buildings. I know for a fact that I spoke out that evening and said that we would do immediate measures, take immediate measures, which we did. We implemented 3 security guards, 1 in each building. And I also said that the district was looking towards a capital project that would increase security at that point in time. So I really feel that, in my mind, I cannot move forward without putting security into the building. I understand that there's other avenues that people can take if they want to enter a building, but it's not just, in my mind, an active shooter. There's disgruntled parents. There's mentally disturbed individuals that can walk into the building. If you can corral them into one area and have them identify themselves, be able to secure them in that area. If you buy 30 seconds, you buy a minute, you buy 2 minutes, it's a lot. And that's what I look at it as far as that security piece. If we want to tweak it a little bit and maybe work around the reconfiguration of the nurses area, that's board's discussion. So I'm giving you my personal opinion as far as the security piece, and it's opened up to the rest of the board.
I would like to hear from my colleagues, and it's funny, there's a letter here from a community member. Would we think that it's risky if we put the entire security piece up as a separate vote? Because I hear you, Al, I do. And the measures we did take, that's costing us an extra $100,000 a year in our operating budget. And I understand that. I do feel we need it. I'm just concerned that this could be a divisive issue. And I would like the voters to decide, or do you think that we would be risking the whole thing?
So I think that's an important discussion point, because one thing we've heard from the committee, and I do, I receive the committee's recommendations, with high regard. I take them very seriously, and they chose not to include that. So we also know that we heard loud and clear from the community at different points that was important to them. And one thing that's consistent all along that the committee has told us, and that we've already known, is that the voters have the final say. So it shouldn't be an insult to the committee to leave that as an option to the voters as a separate prop. Well, you know, we can basically honor all the recommendations, and then, just like they said, the voters have the final say. And if it is a separate prop, that's exactly how it'll go. If it is important to the voters, they can demonstrate that at the polls.
Yeah, just point of information, the base proposal would have to pass in order for the additional propositions to follow through. Even if they are successful, the base proposition has to succeed. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to just say that I do want the security piece in, and I agree. We have heard from the community, we heard from parents that it's an important issue. I have talked to some parents, and I think that we need to put that in for all 3 schools. Like you said, if we want to tweak it, that's fine, but I think it's important that it's in this proposition, whether it's separate, I'll go with whatever the board, you know, agrees on, or in the same proposition, but I feel it should be there.
Was it not important in December when the vote took place?
It was, but I think that went down for other reasons.
I think one of the things that, you know, I have a couple questions, and it's probably for Ashley to grow in a minute. But I think when we talk security, for this discussion at least, it's very open-ended. You could talk about the vestibules. In addition, there's access control. In addition, so there's, you know, quite a few things when we talk about security. And I think my estimate came to about 2.1 million when you look at all of those components. And I could be wrong, there's a lot of numbers, but one thing that I was looking to do today was to have a better understanding. One of the items that we kind of left off discussion on last week was addressing the parking lots and the asphalt of the district across the board with some seal coating and possibly some repair and some items. So as I'm looking at this chart and I see the seal coat area is coming out to, you know, under $50,000, I think that's straight seal coating when we know that there are some areas of the parking lot that need more than that. So I'm estimating in my mind, let's say it's $100,000 to seal coat and maybe address some of the areas. So that might be something beyond what the committee recommends. Beyond that, I think my stance is that I really want to work within the means of the committee recommendation and also the outcome of the vote in December, which for me was very significant because, you know, that's the data I'm drawing from. You know, so I don't know if the vestibules alone is what you're talking about now, or is it the security as a whole that includes all those components. But I think my response to people who are saying, hey, you know, I want that, my question is, didn't you want it in December? And you know,
are you going to reopen for public comment?
Yes.
Though a lot of people...
I said that earlier.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Though a lot of people, you know, feel it's important, when it came to the vote, it wasn't that important. Or we're working within the means that we can afford, and that's part of the discussion here.
Right, Mike, just for clarification, right now we're speaking of 1A on the elementary school, which is strictly the sally ports and the reconfiguration of the nurse's office area. Security access control, that will be our next topic of the discussion. Is the board, would you like to see a breakdown as far as what the actual security vestibule versus the other reconfiguration in that main office area, what the breakdown would be for this future discussion? Would that help?
Well,
It could help. There's a lot of...
Yeah, right now it's a combination. It's a total package of $324,000, which includes the secure vestibules in the elementary school, plus the reconfiguration of the adjoining room, which is the nurse's suite, and I think the main offices, and then there's a split air conditioning system there. Would you like to see a breakdown of that?
yeah.
Heather, is that okay? Do you have any?
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right. Any other numbers? All right, so we can move off of this topic,
Okay.
and we'll have that breakdown for further discussion. Security access control, T1, on the elementary school, it's $222,000. That includes the building security system consisting of surveillance cameras, door access control, intrusion detection devices, interior-exterior cameras to allow for complete interior and exterior coverage. Includes the camera license, and it includes the exterior door upgrades that will allow the card access. The only main point I see there outside, and we've talked about card access many, many years on the board level and from the support service level. Out of that piece, yes, it's all very important as far as security and safety. One item in there that I think would be a plus would be that intrusion detection that would allow the main office to triple an alarm if one of the exterior doors is ajar. Somebody's opened it, somebody blocked it open. That would allow, and that falls hand in hand with that secured portal, because that allows our safety officer, our security officer, now to roam the building freely, because he doesn't have to man that front entrance, because that is being offset by some of the office staff that would monitor the entrance of the main doors. So that would allow him to go down and check what doors are ajar from that intrusion detection system. That would be one item that I would think, and I don't know what the cost would be associated with that, but that tying into the door hardware will allow future expansion, probably for access cards at some point in time. So that could be a future project. I'm looking at to try to get the most we can and still allow for future expansion on all the items. So, that would help in that case, because if you're going to put new door hardware, you would also get that possibility of expanding it in the future. Anybody have any feelings and discussion in regards to the security access control system?
I do, no surprise, right? If I were to accept the rationale of the committee, which I do, is on a personal level, I could understand foregoing the actual reconfiguration of the entrance for the reason that there are other ways, less expensive ways of deterring an individual or the active shooter situation. So that infrastructure may, I could actually live without it, because there's other ways around it. But also accepting that rationale, maybe we're not interested in just protecting from an active shooter situation. Maybe we're interested in protecting from the everyday occurrences where safety and security are important, which have been mentioned by our building principals and other community feedback as things that do happen somewhat regularly. Threats, they're legitimate threats, whether they're from within the walls, kids getting in fights or altercations or irate parents or other people who just don't belong. That's where this stuff comes into play. The stuff that is not designed for that what-if scenario. It's designed for that everyday scenario. So that's the security access control system, the phone system, the building paging system. Those three things address the everyday needs to secure the buildings from within. And so I actually see those things as distinct and separate. And if we were to accept that rationale, that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, this stuff is still important, even if the Sally Port's not.
Anybody else?
I think I would agree. I mean, overall, on the board standpoint, in my opinion, safety and security is utmost, of course, with education, obviously, but I think if we can't secure the safety of our children, then, we're at fault as a board, personally. So to me, a lot of the safety measures, I would say absolutely yes on. I don't know, I guess I didn't put too much thought into putting it up separately, and I guess my thought on that would be my concern that it's not something that we can vote through just with security. You have to get the other thing to pass first. So I don't know that it makes sense to separate them out. Because if you're going to have safety and security in with the rest of it, and specifically the security access, if you get the capital project to pass, I would hope that there's not the risk that safety and security measures would fail, but that would be my concern overall.
Anyone else?
Alan, clarification question. Does the district have a lockdown policy of which any of these items would complement or be required to fulfill your policy?
We have lockdown procedures that have changed, and I would say improved with practice, and certainly could see how some of the pieces of the security would enhance those practices. Additional cameras would allow us to detect someone in the corridors and in other parts of the building where we currently don't have cameras. That's the first one that comes to mind, but I'm sure there are other ways that we could use. So when your key is your badge, you can really, you have a system that allows you to really monitor access to the building as well.
We see some districts have the ability to lock exterior doors that
Remotely
that have that kind of hardware.
So that would buy you at the time that some of our board members were talking about, if you could do that remotely.
Heather, if I could weigh in on your statement. My concern is if we bump up the committee's existing $15 million recommendation, I believe the $15 million is going to be keeping the taxes level because we're retiring debt. My concern is the voters would turn their backs on it. It's risky either way, and that's why I took the approach that I did, to have a separate proposition. But I appreciate.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and like I said, I haven't given it a lot of thought beforehand.
Yeah.
I know we had talked at the last meeting that that's not really the direction we want to go with putting separate propositions up, which is why I didn't really think about it that much. But my concern is that the 15 million would pass and then the security goes down.
Right.
And personally, as a board member, I feel security is utmost important.
I think that the security, well, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think the security would pass overwhelmingly.
Would pass. Right. That would be my hope. But my fear would be that way.
Yeah.
But with that being said,
Wish I had a crystal ball.
if your base proposition is 15 million, and you have add-on propositions, the aggregate will go above the 15 million. So you would add on another 400,000 or 500,000 for proposition 1, another 700,000, 800,000 for proposition 2. You're over 16 million.
Yeah.
Right, but this is giving the
Not
voters the
that
decision.
break even where.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other thoughts?
Well, I mean, just on
that matter, in all honesty, when we got the committee's recommendation, I understood the recommendation, I understood how they got there. Personally, I'm not looking to go millions and millions of dollars above that recommendation because I want to stay within the entire community's comfort level. So knowing that we have a number there, we still had to add some seal coating and some repair, was going to drive that up. When we get to the high school, personally, I'd like to replace the lockers that are circa 1960. I love the idea of access control. I love the idea of video. I love the idea of all of those things. But unfortunately, similar to the conversation with the parking lot for the buses in the back, it's not just one thing. It's a multi-layered approach. And that's going to equate to several $1 million of going beyond a certain range that I was looking to recommend. And that's why it's difficult to say just the clock system or just the access control. I don't know where I know we're going to continue talking about it, but that's the range I was looking to really work within. 16-ish.
No, I understand, Mike. I think this exercise will just get us through.
Oh, no, it's
and
very
allow
good.
each board member to express their passion
Understood.
where they feel, you know, items that are dear to them.
Even though I didn't get it out early enough, that was my rationale for sending out that worksheet for us all to use, just as a worksheet, so that
Yeah.
in understanding that, again, we heard the message from the committee, which I respect and accept. Let's try to stay within those parameters and, you know, respect that. And so with that worksheet, if there are some things that a security piece would trump, and I'll say it again, you know, like possibly the tennis court, since we already have an avenue for providing tennis for the students.
Mhm.
There's $450,000 that we could free up for security. And so that becomes apparent when you get on this worksheet and start moving things around. So, you know,
Thank you.
Again, it's out of respect for the message that was delivered by the committee, both in black and white and also what was inferred with where we ended up.
Okay, moving on to communication systems and IT. Phone system obviously is there. Clock system's there. The upgrades to the computer lab are there. Building paging system, the 16,000. We heard, you know, where we are with building paging, so that's an item that could be up for discussion at some point in time. Moving on to site under the general. S1, which is the reorganize the bus loop, parent drop-off, staff parent visitor parking areas, reduce the traffic flow, safety measures, et cetera, et cetera. The committee had asked for some feedback as far as patching the deficiencies that exist, the potholes, the alligators areas, the soft spots, and then also cost on seal coating. If you look at the handout that you got today, our landscape architect was down yesterday, went through all locations. Under the elementary school, you got 125,000 square feet of pavement, the elementary school. Over almost 65, 70% of it right now is recommended to be reconstructed. If you drove from Lockhart Lane down to Woodside Place on the north side of that thoroughfare there, that entire strip is shot, needs to be reconstructed. The remaining, what do you got? About 44,000 out of the 125. 42,000, they recommend seal coating. That would be the upper parking lot that really gets minimal use as far as through traffic. The new area, the circle area that was constructed in 2001, which is fairly new, that is under that seal coating area. But pretty much the rest of that parking lot needs to be reconstructed. Cost to reconstruct the 82,000 roughly square foot is $577,000. Am I reading that correct, Pat?
Yes. Maybe summary at the bottom of the page as well.
Total, right? It's 227 for 32,000 square feet, 350,000 for 50,000 square feet. It's different areas, so it's a total of $577,500. To seal coat the remaining areas of the elementary school is about $15,000, $16,000. So you're talking over almost $600,000 to reconstruct the bad areas. I mean, they're extremely beat up, and seal coating the rest is a $600,000 bill. And that would fall under S1 under the site. So those are the numbers that you have to consider to. Can we patch the existing deficiencies there? If you do drive through there, especially board members, look at it, you'd be out of that 82,000 square feet, you're lucky if you're going to save 25 to 30,000 because it's just speed up. It really is. Patching a pothole will last less than a year.
So between seal coating and reconstruction, there's no other options in between that?
I don't think you can cap that area. Capping is a lot cheaper. It's $1.50 a square foot. I don't believe you can cap it. You cap it with 1.5 inch pavement. If you don't correct the soft spots and all the deficiencies that are sublying, you're going to have an issue within a year, in my opinion.
When you get to the high school, you'll see that that was recommended for this west lot because it is in good condition, sub-bases compared to the elementary school. So in the elementary school, it did fit to those two categories.
And past history, Mike, from the support service standpoint, elementary school has been on the radar for a good number of years. Middle school and high school, no. Elementary school, yes. Both from a safety standpoint and a deterioration standpoint. That's been on the radar for a good number of years. And it has been, each and every year, maintained as far as town helps the district filling potholes, but you know, you have surrounding conditions there.
It's a very busy thoroughfare.
Not going to work. Filling the potholes is not going to work. Okay, so you have that to look at. You'll know the cost for reconstruction and the seal coating in those areas.
So what you're saying, Alan, that if we take the recommendation just to seal coat and a little bit of construction, it's really not going to last?
We cannot top coat or seal coat that 80-something thousand square feet.
We have to actually
paving down
reconstruct it.
to be cost effective.
Is there any way we can pare down this site, this 1.9 million?
That's not in right now. It's completely
Right, it's out.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the piece you're speaking about, correct?
Right, and part of that is the new bus loops. And
Right, so is there any way we can pare that down to make it, even if we don't reconfigure it, to make it work where it's safe and it's a good parking lot?
Can I answer that?
The chart has that information.
And that's what it's doing, the chart, and that's what the chart's addressing?
What you see on that chart, for the most part, is part of that $1.9 million
Okay.
outside of the seal coating.
Deborah, at the bottom of the page, there's in red, cost summary, and it totals the elementary school work, plus in a late conversation I was having with our landscape architect this afternoon, because he was just here yesterday, so hot off the press. He said he wanted to include about $25,000 for miscellaneous concrete curb replacement. And the dollars also include the concrete walks, which is a paragraph below the table. And then the number that is on the original spreadsheet of about 1.9 million, that includes our design contingency. And so if you want to compare the two numbers, compare the 844,500 to the 1.9. And the paring down is no reconfiguration of the traffic flow or the pedestrian flow. So that's the pared down version, is the 844,500. Unless you just select separate areas within the lot itself.
Thank you. Are we in a situation where we must do something? I'm not a contractor, so.
Absolutely. I mean, we can patch potholes year after year, but it doesn't solve the issues. One area will get worse than others, so if you patch a pothole today, 3 months from now, another area that's just about going bad is going to sprout up, and you're going to have to patch that. So it's like one of those deadly illnesses. It spreads. It doesn't get better. You can't cure it unless you completely remove and start over. Does anybody have any other concerns with this site? We can move on to the building.
Yeah.
And I will open up the meeting to public comment after we finish the elementary school. We'll open up to public comment, and we'll see how far we can go with each building.
Now, real quick,
We have to do something there at the school. I mean, at the elementary school. We've already self-identified numerous bad situations, which are liabilities to the district. We have to address this somehow, some part of that. I could give on the bus loop, you know, relocation and everything. You know, I think that's would have been nice, but I think we can do without that.
Yeah, you're right, Tom. That's what's good. You have this spreadsheet that we just got from our site, our landscape architect. So you can work off of that, and when we come back again to talk about it, we can make those adjustments.
All right.
Building renovations. Exterior gym stoops are in. The exterior loading dock is in. Primary school entrance, that was to take that existing entrance, which is no longer in use, away. That's not included. The window upgrades, the repair option is in. Replace option is out. Corridor ceiling option is out. The angle display cases, we got the interpretation on the code violation there from Pat earlier. That's not in currently. It's an item of $43,000. The stage curtains are in, cafeteria stage curtains are in. A9, A10, which is the renovation of the cafeteria stage area. Both of those items are currently out of the project. Gymnasium damper controls, that's in. Classroom ventilations included. Teacher lounge, split air system, eliminating the existing window unit, that's out. Server room, the new split system there is not included. The media center is in. Fuel tank removal is in. The water heaters are in. The drinking fountains are in. Fire alarm upgrades in. Generator is included, and the upgrade to the electric panels is also included. Any discussion on any of those items that are not included in the building renovations of the elementary school?
I just have a quick question. On the server room, I know they say servers need air conditioning, okay? Is this hurting our servers because we don't have the proper air conditioning? I mean, I know it's a small ticket item.
Maybe Mr. Miller, we currently have a split system in there. Yes, undersized.
A single split system,
Covering a room about what size roughly?
probably about 11 by 15.
And there's no backup if that
No
fails.
backup.
And has
Not
this
good.
caused issues because it didn't, you know,
Well,
because
we've
they,
had,
I
we've
know
had a
they
number
need
of
air
issues
conditioning.
with it failing over the last couple of summers when it's working really hard. We've got, you know, it's on an alarm system. It tells us when it goes down, and we have to run in there and, you know, put fans in and do what we can do. to
Cool
keep
down
it
the server.
cool as much as possible, and then, you know, but we've had a number of issues, and when I say a number, probably 5 or more, where we've had the system go down and had to do repairs. It's not new, it's age. It goes back to probably the original technology system, which was
01.
before that. I think it was before that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor of putting that back in. It's that's the controls for the whole building and communication to outlying points.
The server for the phone system for both the elementary and the middle school.
are there. Yeah.
Right.
Runs a lot more than just the ES campus.
Okay, that's item H4. Anybody else have any?
Is there not room, listen, based upon the discussion we just had, I mean, this still has to go for the voters and then referendum. I mean, even if this passed in the fall, you wouldn't break ground for a whole nother year. So is there not some money in the budget to purchase a air conditioner, a split system for that room off of a state contract or something? I just, even if we said, yes, that's it today, you're not going to get your air conditioner for a year and a half, possibly 2 years. So I just don't know if it is that important. Is there a way to expedite that than rather put it in there? That's my only question.
Those are items that are open for discussion, yes.
Yep.
Okay, we're good. We'll move on to kitchen renovations. 810, main kitchen, that's the base option, that's been accepted. The enhanced option is also accepted. The primary wing kitchen, that's been accepted. And the primary wing kitchen minor concern has been accepted. Let's replace the convection oven. So all the kitchen renovation upgrades have been included in the community's recommendation. And under roofing, that also has been included in the committee's recommendation. So total recommendation for the elementary school upgrades are roughly $2,054,000. Anybody have any questions? I will open it up to public comment in regards to the elementary schools. Please, again, state your name. Sure.
Hi, I'm Sherry Horn. I guess most people might know me.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, guys. I wanted to respond to the question about why the vote went down in December, and I know, having attended most of the meetings prior to the vote, the things that were really being argued about in terms of the capital project were things like the AstroTurf and the lockers and maybe the ground and the bus lobby. Nobody was standing up and debating the security issues. So as a community member, I'm very surprised that the community group would come in with a proposal that cut so much of the security measures. I think the vote would have gone very differently if people had heard prior to the vote that those were on the table for things being cut. Those didn't seem like the controversial issues to me. So it sounds like most of you are on the page that I think most parents are hoping that you're on.
Anyone else for public comment in regards to the elementary school? Okay, middle school. Again, safety and security, the main entrance, which is the Sally Port, that has been excluded. That's $38,000. The main entrance wheelchair accessible route, that has been excluded. That's where we would take over what they call the current bookstore and create the handicap accessibility through that area and have a drop curb in the front for handicap. Currently, handicap for all board members is through the back. They have about I would say 150-foot walk up a slight incline. I think it's also handicap accessible as far as the grade back there. But it's a long wall to go up to those double doors that are currently locked at all times during the day, not monitored. So whatever handicapped individuals we have going to that building would have to call ahead and have someone meet them there to let them in. So that's that piece. The security access and control system, which is the door access, same as the elementary school, is also excluded from there. So to create that Sally Port at the main entrance is not as expensive as the elementary school. It's a lot less work. It doesn't entail the reconfiguration of the adjacent offices and such. The biggest expense there is creating that handicap accessible main entrance area. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think it's about time we move that wheelchair accessible door to the front of the building. As it stands now, it's almost like there are people that are in wheelchairs or need that entrance are second-class citizens. That's basically, I think, where the message we're putting out there.
Is there only one route of ingress and egress right now for wheelchair access?
Yeah.
I believe so.
And now I think that at the same time, I mean, yeah, we have our security person monitoring the front door. I guess when somebody in a wheelchair or somebody that's disabled needs to get into the building, they have to go around the back of the building. That security person, I assume, has to then go and open the door for them.
Somebody from staff can have.
Somebody has to
Doesn't
possibly.
be that security person, right?
Could be that person,
It
but
could be that.
at the same time, then if that is that person, then they're leaving their post, watching the front door. I mean, it speaks for itself, and it says here that it's a violation, it looks like, of ADA, so why aren't we,
Why isn't it in?
why aren't we not, you know, why are we not addressing that?
Right.
It is
Violation.
It is?
It should be in there then.
You would be looked at, again, like the display cases in the elementary school corridor. If you submit a significant amount of work to SED for their review, they would probably pick up on the front door is not handicap accessible.
Would they accept it that the side door mitigates that? No? Or we?
Yes,
are we
they would.
still-
I believe that if you offer another adequate entrance, it would meet the requirement. And it's not just one, there's two. You could go in through the back gym if you had to. I mean, that entrance to the gym, or you could go up to the ramp to the back of the library. So, I mean, it's all, there's not just one point of egress for a handicapped person into the building.
School buildings can have entrances other than the main entrance if there's a significant obstacle that already exists, like a lot of stairs, for example. But there has to be clear signage that directs that individual to the accessible entrance.
Do we have that, in your opinion?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember the signage at the middle school. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, unless Mr. Miller can comment.
There's handicap parking, you can't use that word anymore, but there's handicap parking on the south side of the building, on the edge of the gym, by the ADA compliant ramp. As Alan said, it's probably about 125 foot long to get up to the doors that go into either the cafeteria, the hallway, or the gym entrance, as we call it there.
But we have adequate signage that would direct that person to go to that area?
No.
Could we remedy that?
Signs are easy, but the general consensus of ADA is that it's supposed to be a proper entrance that doesn't make the person feel like a second-class citizen going to the building. If you read, we just recently went through a whole new thing in New York State where the signage is going to change. It is now a wheelchair in motion.
I saw that in the paper.
Standing still. There's a lot of pressure on people with disabilities and how they are handled and addressed and dealt with in a facility.
Pat, does that grade, I don't believe that grade has a level spot in any duration going
The
up.
grade is 1 on 51, the ramp is 1 on
Continuous,
12.
isn't it? There's no,
There are relief points
There are relief
in that
points?
grade, but there's not much.
right.
It's 1 on 12. Where it's in grade, it's 1 on 12. The parking lot is 1 on 51.
Okay.
I am not anti-special needs. It's just, I'm thinking, do we meet compliance? And if we meet compliance, that's where I'm at.
Let's just verify that, Pat, if we can. As far as the relief areas, the grade, it's a long haul from the parking lot to those doors. And then if they're going to the main office, another 100 feet through the building.
And they have to go through the rest of the school at that point.
All right. Security access control, again, that's not included in the middle school. That's the cameras, door access, the motion detection devices, et cetera, et cetera. Same concerns as the elementary school. Under communications and IT, phone system is in, the clock system is in, the computer lab is in. Building paging system for the middle school, which I believe has the least amount of building paging in all our campuses. Am I correct with that, Mr. Miller?
Say that again?
The middle school has the least amount of paging capabilities than the other schools. We have a lot of dead areas in the dead zones in the middle school.
No, the worst building is the high school.
High school. Okay.
The middle school in the Excel project had many of the areas covered as a simplex system, and it was expandable. Many of the areas, there are a few dead areas in the middle school.
Just curious on the cost differential. You had $16,000 for the elementary school and $78,000 for the middle school. Is there that much? If you're telling me that the middle school paging was upgraded, and I recall that during the Excel project, and there was some other area that we wanted to pick up, but we weren't able to. And that's an expandable system there. Why is it that expensive?
Oh,
okay. Moving on to general site. Again, that's minimal at the elementary school. At the middle school. Both items are in: asphalt replacement, walk area, and the concrete pad at the service area. Athletic fields. We have the irrigation that's not included. We have the bleachers and the concrete steps that are included. And those are two major safety issues at the middle school. They're both included. All your investigative work for the irrigation, Peter, has proven.
we haven't found water yet.
Have dug deep.
Well, we haven't, but we're still trying to pursue that. But if we're going to continue with the level of play on grass fields, we've got to get water to that field.
Right.
Somehow, somewhere.
Okay, we'll leave that up for discussion. Under building renovations, the exterior masonry, that's the parapet walls, that's included. Windows replacement are included. The overhead doors included. Home and careers, classroom upgrades are included. The wall and plaster is included. Roof access is included. Toilet room renovations are included. Replacing the univents in the classrooms is included. Nurse's office upgrade, toilet room upgrades, or they're actually ventilation. Second floor classroom ventilation units are included. Technology, dust collection system is included. Office AC, new split system, eliminate the window units is included. And removing the convolt tank is included. The only items excluded would be the exterior louvers, the exterior doors, and the main office reconfiguration, which falls into that vestibule or portal upgrade. But the portal upgrade can be a standalone because it doesn't really affect the reconfiguration of the offices. Any questions and concerns about the building renovation piece? And also under the building and the electrical end, the generator is included and the upgraded service panel is included. Under kitchen renovations, both items, part 1, part 2, is included in the project. And the roofing is also included. Total right now for the middle school is $3,842,000. If you go to our landscape architect's spreadsheet on the middle school, basically the middle school would have 91,000 square feet of pavement. They recommend seal coating 85,000 square feet. Remember that the middle school is all the paving is part of the 2001 project, so it's not that old. They're only recommending reconstruction area of about 6,000 feet, and that's predominantly the parking lot area south of the gymnasium and the drive around back, I think.
Does that cost include the restriping of the parking lot as well?
Generally it does. Striping relatively inexpensive.
Okay, and again, you look down at the bottom, Pat's figures there with the contingencies, about $80,000 to do that seal coating and upgrading at the middle school parking. I'll again open up public comment for the middle school.
Good evening, Mike Sweeney. I did serve on the committee, the public committee for the board. And just a couple quick clarifications, and you guys didn't hit me in the back if I get it wrong. I think the committee went through in very detail all items. And I just want to lay the idea that the committee dismissed safety. That was not the intent, the recommendation, that was not the discussion that the committee had. What the committee came to a consensus on, a very strong consensus, was that there's adequate, not perfect, safety measures in the buildings today. Can they be built upon? Sure, they can be. There's better procedures, there's different ways to do it. But the committee looked at, after the whole one was all said and done, in the scope of the project, what went down. I think we could all disagree about why that bond issue went down. We're all going to have an opinion on it. But I think I said this before, and I think Mike agreed with it. The only thing we know is it went down resoundingly. So we're guessing on why it didn't. But I just want to let it know that the committee didn't dismiss safety. It's in the scope of this project. So I would also say that in front of the board, I addressed the board twice on 2 occasions to the young woman's intent that nobody from the public came and said that the safety wasn't. I thought it was an overreach, personally, not on the committee, personally. I still think it's an overreach. And I would say to the board, if it's that imperative, and I heard a moral imperative up here, I have one question to the board is, how much money is in the 2014-15 budget to increase safety? If there's not, the moral imperative, I find it hard to grapple with that. If we're going to wait 2 or 3 or 4 years for something that I'm hearing from the board that should be done right now, that the kids are at this danger point, then it should have been in the budget next year. But it's critical, but we're going to wait 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I think that's where the committee itself, to go back to the committee, looking at what can we do, what's reasonable in light of what's going on. What can the district do, and what can this district take upon? And for those questions that were asked the last meeting, who has kids, who doesn't, I don't think it's relevant at all. I think we all have love for kids and we want their safety. But just for the record, I still have 3 grandchildren in the district, at all the schools. So it's near and dear to me, but I also think some things are knee-jerk reaction, that it's just a false sense of security. I also think when you go through this debate, I think it's important, I've said it before, all items that you guys originally had in this bond issue have merit. They're all good. They can all be justified. So if we go each individual item and try to do it on its merit, everyone's going to vote yes. Very hard to vote no. But I think, again, the committee took a step back and said, what is reasonable in the scope of a bond issue to the public that's already voted down an issue? And I think there is a difference. If that committee had met initially and brought a recommendation to the board, whole different conversation. But it was the board reaching out saying, 1, why did that bond issue go down? What do we need to do to get those things done that have to get done and get it passed by the public? I just have to comment about the referendum. I do think you run the risk of failure. I think the committee was we went through probably 5 or 6 scenarios on how to present it to the public, how to finance it differently, looking at it a little differently, 10-year amortization, split it up, do some other different things. And I think the overriding kind of framework for the discussion was, we don't want this to fail. I get the proposition, I get the base thing, but at the end of the day, the voters vote this down, and you're sitting here with a big zero. And the things that have to get done in this district, roofs and things, and all those kind of good things that keep the buildings up, won't get passed. Two questions about the paving. One, I don't think it was the committee's intent to rip up everything. Regardless if the architect says, you know what, it's the best idea here to fix it. Much like your house, you do what you can do and then move on and get to another day to fix it. So, but we were, in the spirit of things, we said, let's seal coat, let's fix those areas that have to get fixed now. I'm not sure if the $600,000 has to get fixed now, or it's a good thing. The landscape architect, the paving architect said, maybe that's the way to go. And just one last point, I just heard the tennis courts again. What we heard from one of the people on the committee was, who has the town recreation program, one, questioned the validity of busing kids down there to do that, impeding the gym program up here when we have tennis courts that can be fixed. And I think that was part of, just to give you a sense of the rationale of why that was put back in by the committee. But I guess where I want to go is, I think everything could be put back in. I think you can put it all back in. You didn't have to have a need for a committee, because it's all good stuff. But the reality is, a decision has to be made that's going to be by the public. And so I think the committee came together. I think I told you this last time. I thought Fred did a great job coming together with diverse opinions, trying to get to somewhere. We didn't have a landing spot. We went through this process. You saw part of it. We went through it numerous times, but came down to those things that we felt at this point in time were the best thing for the district.
Good evening. My name is Andre Spinelli. For those of you that don't know who I am, except for about 2 years of my life, I've been a Highland resident. I'm a former employee and now a proud parent of 2 beautiful little girls. Let me preface my remarks this evening by stating I fully support this project, the selection of a board of stakeholders, and the decision of the district not to give up on the capital project upon its initial defeat, but to re-examine what a cross-section of the community defines as necessary at this juncture. However, I would be remiss if I did not voice my concern over the removal of nearly all security components from this project. Granted, some are seemingly more cosmetic, intended to direct traffic more easily to the main entrance. Given the nature of our society in current times and the surging heroin epidemic in our district's borders and surrounding areas, I find it to be foolish to forego the opportunity to address some very real needs. First, an expansion or upgrading of the current camera system. I've not worked in the district for the last 3 years, and some items may have changed, but the cameras in use at the high school while I served as a teacher on assignment and later as assistant principal were marginally effective. Nearly all cameras were motion sensitive on the exterior, and they only sometimes followed what you needed them to follow. Fixed general area cameras would be more useful for whatever need may arise. Secondly, we did not have an extensive indoor camera system in our halls. Throughout the years, Highland has very often cut monitors and other paraprofessionals that used to provide the consistent presence in the hallways, and currently there are not enough teachers with open duty assignments to pick up that slack. While many of these items have been eliminated over the years, it has left a hole in the fabric of educating our students. Cameras will assist administration in solving issues of bullying and harassment, theft of personal property, vandalism, and in the unfortunate instance of an assault. I've been in part of investigations where cameras have been a useful tool in all those items that I've just mentioned, so I'm speaking from first-hand knowledge when I make these assertions. The expansion of the camera system needs to extend to all 3 buildings, covering all points of entry and exit from the building as well as key external areas. If we cannot have the personnel, then the use of the cameras as a tool will improve the current situation. Let me next state that I applaud the district's hiring of 3 dedicated security personnel, 1 for each building. Just as curriculum is changing, and in education, so too is the climate and atmosphere surrounding our schools. While I know it would come under the following year's operating budget, I would recommend highly the hiring of 1 to 2 more security personnel, with each being deployed in the middle and the high schools. I say this because on a day-to-day basis, there are more student-to-student verbal and physical altercations at these levels, and an extra person at each building would help to respond quickly to such instances, escort students to the office if removed from a class, and provide supervision during key times such as lunch, recess, arrival, and dismissal. It is my belief we could deal with only adding 1 more guard, having them be at the high school with its higher enrollment, than the middle school and greater likelihood of incidences given the age of the students. Expansion of the current camera systems and eventual additional security personnel could free up teachers from duties to assume a 6th teaching period. This could lead to the expansion of elective offerings. It could also have a positive impact on keeping class size reasonable, all at a smaller cost than hiring additional teachers to fill any of these areas. Finally, if all schools do not have it, each should have at least a buzzing system for their main entrance. While not foolproof or indestructible, this system has become the norm at many school buildings. It could eliminate the need to hire a greeter, frees up a current monitor or security member to circulate the halls, and keeps people that are not wanted inside the building out. All of this is done without putting a single person in harm's way. Currently, the district in which I work, we have the system on every single building in district, inclusive of the administrative building. And there are more farms and horses where I work than where we all currently reside and send our children. Thank you for the time and the work that the committee put in. Thank you to the board and to the administration for the work that you guys do year in and year out. And regardless of your decisions, this project will have my full support because every portion of it is necessary, along with those that I've just discussed.